Alright, Sean, this is week 2 of video lessons, and I'm hoping that by the time you're doing these, you're going to feel so much better. So the last time we worked with the lesson book and the theory book, and I introduced to you the new idea of chromaticism, and I really do need you, before you do these lessons, I need you to work through those other lessons and start particularly experimenting with the chromaticism. I want to work today on this video in your performance book, and then I'm going to also show you on a separate video one of the artistry pieces in your technique book. So these you can work on. What I'd like to do with the performance book today is give you a choice. So I'm going to play, starting on page 20, this is in the ledger line unit. This song, and I think that's where you were finishing up some songs. This one, Erie Canal on page 20, and then there's a duet that's written out, and I would like you to at least start with the primo part, and I'll explain that to you in a minute, but this is one of those that you should be able to play both of the parts too, which would be kind of fun because we could change, and I could do the primo for a change. I like playing secondo actually, but it's fun to play primo sometimes. Primo is essentially the melody most often. So anyway, so what I'd like to do is play for the Erie Canal, so you get an idea of what it's going to sound like. I think you're going to like this because you've got that jazzy thing going on. You enjoy jazz. And you're going to notice that we talked about in the lesson book about swinging the eighths. We're going to do some swinging the eighths. So page 20, if you don't have your book open, push pause, and what I'd like to do is follow along in the music while I'm playing. I'm going to switch glasses here. This is when you can do some fun jazzing it up, and it's got a part that I can play along with you. And nice thing about that is you'll stay in the same position when I'm doing the little treble thing. So, all right, following along. So there's the Erie Canal. Had a couple wrong notes in it, but you'll fix those in your part, I'm sure. I only practiced it once before I played it for you, so. All right, so I'd like you to start that, and the way to approach that song is you're going to notice, I hoped you noticed that the left hand has almost got its own little melody going on, so this one I would work on hands separately. Make sure you're paying attention to the fingerings. You do not have to swing the eighths to start with, but I'd like you to get to swinging the eighths by the time you perform it for me. So hands separate, then try hands together, slowly but surely. All right, the Alexander March, written by Beethoven but arranged. This isn't exactly the way he wrote it. One thing, if you look at the primo part, so notice the primo is on the right-hand side, the secondo is on the left, kind of like what we did when we were doing those duets for Christmas. This is pretty much standard formatting for duets. But you're going to notice that the right hand, and oftentimes this happens in classical duetting, is that your hands are playing in unison from the beginning. Now notice we're in the key of F, so you need to make sure you have your B flats. You get down to measure 9, and then it's going to start to do a little accompaniment pattern, but for the most part you're starting. So it should sound the same because you're playing in unison. And then you're going to the... And then at that point, remember our little thing, you do not have to play that all the way it's written. Notice it's just a broken chord. And so in that section, it's perfectly fine when you're first working on it to... like that. So give yourself the freedom to do that. The idea is that after we do the stages, we want to have a nice finished product, but don't rush the process, okay? Looking at the secondo, if my guess is that this is going to be an awful lot to be working on by the time you feel better. So, you may not get to the part doing the secondo, but if you're taking a look at it, you're probably going to see it's basically 1 in 5/7 chords. You might want to use your red pencil to mark your B flat so that when you do your dominant 7, you don't get this, which has happened to me before, hearing students do that. So, what would be a good plan for the next week or so is, after you've worked through the other 2 lessons that I did for last week, start on the Erie Canal and try to work hands separately. Don't feel like you have to master that. You can still be at hands separate, because next time you come, if you've got hands or even just one hand learned, I can play the other one and we can kind of get a feel for what it's going to sound like. But I would like you to try this Alexandra March, at least the primo, because it's not hard. And I think you probably could really learn that. If you don't, as long as you don't play it too fast too soon, I think you could probably learn that in a week. So that's what I'd like you to work on from the performance book. Again, after you do last week's 2 lessons, the lesson from the lesson book and the lesson from the theory book, then do this performance lesson, and then I'm going to make you one more video that you're going to work on for this coming week if you're feeling better. So, okay, so that's what you're doing in performance.